Millions of years ago, early human ancestors were remarkably under-equipped for survival. Placed next to the apex predators of the prehistoric world, we were slow, naked apes. We lacked venom, armored skin, and natural weapons like claws or fangs. You can see that biological baseline directly in the skeletal remains of early hominins like Australopithecus. A specimen like Lucy stood roughly 3.5 feet tall, with a fragile bone structure that would have made her an easy meal for roaming carnivores. So how did a physically defenseless primate manage to survive brutal ice ages and a landscape filled with giant, highly evolved predators? We survived because we stopped waiting around for our biology to adapt. Instead, our ancestors outsourced their evolution to their environment, sparking a compounding chain reaction of technology. Fire became the first major domino in this chain reaction, when species like Homo habilis and Homo erectus mastered it to cook meat, effectively pre-digesting their food. This cooked diet provided a massive calorie surplus with very little digestive effort, directly fueling the biological growth of significantly larger, energy-hungry brains. These denser, more complex brains gave our ancestors the cognitive capacity to process language, coordinate group hunting tactics, and design increasingly specialized tools. This created a feedback loop. Primitive stone tools allowed them to scavenge better meat. The fire cooked it to provide more calories. Those calories built bigger brains, and those bigger brains engineered even sharper tools. As those brains engineered more specific survival gear, humanity achieved a new level of environmental control. By inventing bone needles, early humans could sew tailored, climate-resistant clothing out of animal hides. Looking at these ancient bone artifacts, you can see the delicate needles used for clothing, alongside advanced barbed harpoons designed for specialized hunting. This map shows how precise inventions enabled Homo sapiens to migrate out of Africa, crossing frozen land bridges into entirely new continents. Pushing into vastly different climates forced nomadic groups to invent region-specific tools, like boomerangs in Australia or mammoth bone shelters in Europe. Technology enabled humanity to inhabit nearly any environment on Earth, regardless of our biological limitations. Around 12,000 years ago, as the Ice Age ended and the global climate warming, human behavior shifted again. Instead of migrating to follow wild herds, populations settled down and began attempting to control the environment immediately around them. This diagram shows the physical evolution of animals under human control. Early farmers selectively bred wild species, like the mouflon, shrinking their horns and encouraging woolly coats to domesticate manageable sheep. They applied this biological control to turn wild grasses into robust crops like maize. The mathematics of this agricultural shift were immediate. Farming generated massive, reliable food surpluses that hunter-gatherer societies simply couldn't achieve. For the first time in human history, this surplus created a division of labor. Because fields produced enough calories to feed the entire settlement, a portion of the population was freed from the daily requirement of securing a meal. That newly freed labor force had time to experiment. They learned to extract copper from rocks, eventually smelting it with tin to engineer highly durable bronze and iron tools, leaving the Stone Age behind. Farming created the reliable food surplus and free time required to invent industry, but those physical technologies created a new logistical headache. To manage complex agricultural irrigation and pool resources to import rare metals like tin, scattered farming villages were forced to merge together into dense urban centers. In southern Mesopotamia, cities like Uruk and Ur achieved staggering physical scale. They featured massive boundaries and towering architectural monuments built by highly organized, cooperative labor forces. This rapid urbanization pushed human psychology to its limit. These cities housed tens of thousands of people. The population had grown so large that daily life involved interacting with strangers, a scale that broke down traditional tribal bonds and verbal agreements. The compounding success of farming and metallurgy had accidentally created a crisis of scale. To prevent these massive societies from collapsing, humans had to invent a completely new category of technology. Looking at this clay tablet, you are seeing the birth of social technology. The Sumerians engineered cuneiform writing not to tell stories, but as a rigid data tracking system designed to account for trade, calculate taxes, and measure grain surpluses. Simultaneously, early city leaders utilized centralized religion and monumental architecture as ideological tools, giving thousands of disconnected citizens a shared identity under a single local authority. To maintain order across these diverse populations, subjective tribal justice was replaced by standardized written rules. The physical carving of the Code of Hammurabi proved that law itself was an engineered mechanism designed to manage human behavior at scale. A crude stone tool bought the time for fire. Fire grew the brains to farm. Farming bought the time for metallurgy. Metallurgy built cities, and cities necessitated law. The same cycle of compounding innovation continues today.